The Cuban Missile Crisis. What did it do? What did it change? Coming up on the Cuban Missile Crisis, Secrets Revealed. Now, what happened that caused the Cuban Missile Crisis? It would have been this man by the name of Fidel Castro, a Cuban citizen who overthrew the dictator Batista. But what happened that started the entire Cuban Missile Crisis?
The Cuban Missile Crisis wasn't a fight between two countries. It wasn't a fight between the Soviet Union of Russia and the United States of America. It was not. It was a fight between the American people and the American government fighting the communist government. Now, the communist government had been around for a while and had even taken up parts of America at one time, but it was never prominent. It was never a prominent part of America in an American culture. So once communism came into Cuba and began setting up Cuba and becoming a main base in the Western Hemisphere in Cuba, which is less than 500 miles away from America, that's when a problem came around. And
the problem did not start just with Castro, though. It had to do with this other man, the president of the communist government of Soviet Russia, Khrushchev. Khrushchev, being the president of the Soviet Union, really sets up a major push for communism worldwide and begins to start trying to take over other governments in Europe, Asia, Africa, America, both Americas, and tries to force his form of government on those countries.
A fought war. It was a diplomatic war. For communism was an idea. It wasn't a person, it wasn't a weapon, it wasn't a thing, it was an idea. So, in order to fight someone with communism, it's fighting someone with an idea. Which makes this whole Cuban Missile Crisis, Cold War, it's all a diplomatic battle off the start. It's a diplomatic
Now, something else happens that leads to all of this that starts the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that's American missiles in Turkey. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Dwight D. Eisenhower, the President of the United States at the time, met with Celal Bayar, the President of Turkey, and they met and discussed American missiles in Turkey. Now, the Turkish government agreed to have the American missiles in Turkey, which again has a very similar effect of what the Soviet Union does to America by putting missiles in Cuba, which is what you'll see next. Now, what begins to form here is an alliance with Cuba and the Soviet Union based upon Cuba's new government, a new role in government, a new leader. So once they begin to have an alliance and begin an alliance, that becomes a problem for the American government and for the Americans because of potential missiles in Cuba, which, as seen, is what happens.
He really kept his head on, and he was, hey, we're not going to do this. We're not going to send in our military and invade and beat the communists senseless with our military because we have a strong military and we can show it off. But it wasn't like that. President Kennedy of the United States didn't really push. He didn't push for it. He didn't. He laid back a little bit. He said, you know what? We're going to put up a blockade. Why don't we can just put up a blockade? Cuba's close. If we blockade them off, nothing gets in, nothing gets out. We'll watch the ships. We'll make sure anything that comes in, we watch. And it was a very peaceful resolution.
Now what happened was there was a blockade. Kennedy used his commander-in-chief authority and set up a blockade using the U.S. Navy. That's what happened. That's what went down. But what happens after that is Kennedy addressing the UN, the United Nations, and saying, we have evidence that the Soviet Union has put missiles in Cuba. That threatens us, and we might lash out. Eventually. Maybe not right now, but we will lash out. And that's what he said, and that's what he told them. He provided the evidence, the YouTube pictures, and he put it on the table. And the UN said, you know what? We don't like this either. You have to take it out. There has to be a treaty met because you can't. We don't want another war, a worldwide war. So a treaty is made, and America cannot invade Cuba, and the Russians, the Soviets, have to take out their missiles from Cuba, which ended the entire ordeal. It ended the crisis. But what happens after that, after everything is done, really kicks everyone in the butt and tells everyone, this is really what we were fighting for. This is what happens.
Political views. Political views of future presidents and government officials were changed due to President Kennedy's, hey, we're not going to do that. His entire cabinet, his entire staff, his entire board of officials told him we should fight. We should fight and we should kill. And Kennedy didn't do that. Kennedy said, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to fight. We're not going to kill. What we are going to do is we're going to do something that's peaceful. And that kind of changed mindsets, very much so. It changed the mindsets of Americans, officials, government, whatever. It changed a lot of mindsets to say, hey, it's not always about fighting. We can do something else. It's not, hey, we have to fight. We have a problem, we have to fight. No. It changed so that we didn't actually have to fight, and that there is an alternative to every solution. To every problem, there is a solution, but that might not be the only solution. There might be other solutions that one could go to. Now, there were economic changes as well. The economy of America changed due to a change in the military. Throughout the Cold War, the era of the Cold War, there were ups and downs of government spending in the military, just specifically in the military. And based off of each president, there were ups and downs, taxes, tax cuts, whatever. That is known throughout history. That happens. People have different views. But the main problem, the main change in the economy was the military spending. When the military is not needed, the government doesn't have to spend as much. So during this little section of the Cold War, the military was not needed. The Navy was needed just by clearing out ships' manpower, but not for fighting. There wasn't a need for so much buildup and war, arms race. The arms race throughout the Cold War was building. There was a lot of money. Billions and trillions of dollars were spent into growing the United States armories to beat the Soviet Union in creating a nuclear bomb, creating crazy weapons to beat the other side. But it wasn't necessarily, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it wasn't needed. The military wasn't needed. They used the Navy, but that was it. It wasn't for fighting. It wasn't for shooting. It was just the Navy. Nothing else. So that changed perspectives a lot, saying, well, going back on the political changes, if we don't need to use military all the time, We don't necessarily need to be funding the military as much as we have been. Finally, social changes. There were many social changes. Within the United States itself, the social statuses of Russians, of communists, of the Communist Party in America went down. No longer were they seen, were they heard of, they were in poverty. No one cared for them because they were afraid. There was a huge scare, starting with the Red Scare and Teddy Roosevelt. There was a huge scare of communism. No one wanted communism. Everyone feared communism. It was a problem. And so what you see during this time period and after this time period is a fear of communism and a want to stop the Cold War and to stop the Soviets in their tracks, to make sure nothing else will happen as of communism. Communism had come to America's back door. It said, we're here. And Americans didn't like that. Neither did the American government. No one liked it. Because it's there. It's the thing we fear, and it's right there. So they fought it off by using peace, which was good. But it did very much change how people felt in their government and how America has always been safe. But is it really safe? There was almost a nuclear attack, and America almost was blown up.
Also because of the Cuban Missile Crisis was this new thing called a bomb shelter. Now usually underground, these bomb shelters were sturdy enough so that if a nuclear missile hit it head on, it would stay, and everything that was inside of it would stay perfectly fine. Maybe there would be a little rumble, but I mean, it's all good, right? So not only there were bomb shelters, but in schools, because of the Soviets being so close and being in Cuba and being so close as to we could bomb you and blow you up, there were drills practiced in school where the kids would go and the principal would come on the intercom and be like, hey everybody, we're gonna go into a bomb drill, and everyone would go onto their desks. Not really sure why they did this, because it's a bomb and it's gonna hurt if you hide on your desk, but whatever. And those were two other examples of things that popped up because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Thank you for watching the Cuban Missile Crisis Secrets Revealed. I am Zach Santoro, and remember, if there is ever the threat of a nuclear attack, just hide under your desk.
Full-time player, hopping out an alligator, sipping lean and later, homie, I'll annihilate you. If you think you wanna battle, you gon' have to pay some paper. I just hit her and I quit her, I would never ever date her. It's the same how I'm barely getting love in the city, travel to another town, you could